Welcome to episode 784 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and I do have some bad news. My energy is going to be up, and we're going to talk about exciting things today. But Barcelona is coming off 2 straight losses for the first time in, quite a few months. And so I am looking for answers. The club is looking for answers. Hansi Flick is looking for answers. And I think he has all the answers. It is Diego Lorijn from Turtles y Tacticas. And more importantly now, he has gone off on his own. It's D-Spot. And so, Diego, this is going to be a collaboration on your YouTube channel too. So I don't know. Do you want to redo the intro and say hello to your audience? Or how do we want to do this?
Listen, I think my audience knows you very well. So welcome to the audience from the Barcelona podcast, and D-Spot here with an absolute treat as we are doing this collaboration, this, what do I call it, cross-pollination, where Barca heads get together to talk about something that they love most, they're most passionate about, Football Club Barcelona. And like you said, man, 2 consecutive losses. And I was going to add to that, not only that, but the worst, handing Hansi Flick his worst loss in his career. I think the 4-0 against Atletico was, right, went down as his most lopsided loss since even from his Bayern days.
Well, I think it tied where he was before Bayern? Was he the one who was at
he was at the German national team? Oh, well, no, he was
like way back.
Second, right.
Way back. It was like
second division.
It was his largest first division loss. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Speaking of that, so I actually, in my rundown, I do have Barca notes, obviously, but I think I want to be positive, Diego. I want to go 25 minutes, if you can, on the Bodo Glimt story. No, I say that jokingly, but I just want to start real quickly about Spanish teams in Europe, because obviously, it's hard for us to avoid, again, this is a Barca show, so we don't need to go long on the Benfica and Real Madrid stuff. And again, I think that's always been easy for people who watch my stuff and listen to you. It's like, we obviously know that Benfica, Prestiani, clearly covered his mouth. I even told my partner what the word was. Like, we know what the word was. We know he said something racist to Vinny Jr. and Vinny Jr., responded in kind. It is racist. It is uncalled for. And I've said a million times over that very much like, I was never a fan of Ibrahimovic. Like, there are guys that are, and Vinny Jr. does it better than almost anybody else in the world. He pokes and he pokes and he pokes and he gets people frustrated. And he is a frustrating player. And I do not like him. But he and no other player deserves anything related to that. Once you step outside the bounds of frustration related to football and those kind of, the banter that comes along, that trash talk, like, you have stepped the line and now you are the villains. As much as, obviously all Kool-Aids are rooting for Benfica, the second that happened, I was like, yeah, I don't want Real Madrid to win, but like Benfica, and then the supporters to back up their player, like, nope, you've turned yourself into the villains here. And again, no player deserves that. And I'm always confused, Diego, in the discourse. Maybe it's just because I'm getting old, but the gray hairs, you can see them. But like, I don't have a tolerance for it on social media, whatever. It's just like, there's no nuance. I'm always confused by the nuance of the conversation. It's like,
yeah, well, it's racist and homophobic, right? Because afterwards, we heard in a post-match press conference, I think it was Camavinga or Tchouaméni, saying that he might have misunderstood what he was being told, and then he said the M word. I can't say the M word now. I got my 6-year-old daughter sitting close to me, but it's kind of like, listen, whether he said that homophobic slur or that racist slur, neither has any part of it in the game. Even though, obviously things do get heated, and like you said, the trash talk, nobody is better at the trash talk and the poking of that than a Vinicius Jr. who also was insulting. ¿Cómo se llama el chico este?
Prestiani.
Yes. So like the provocation, let's say, was certainly there. Now, obviously, the line was crossed when the racist or homophobic slur was then used as a rebuttal. But, players cover their mouths all the time as well when they are speaking to each other, having these trash talk moments on the pitch. So, listen, it's I hate that took away from the spectacle, from the game. I hate that we have to talk about these things in 2026. Racism, homophobia, nothing of it really has any place in the sporting world or in society as a whole at this point in time. At least you would hope so. The fact that it does is very disappointing. What also was very telling to me was how Mourinho spoke about it after, as you mentioned, Benfica, the fans, and how the club is really kind of rallied around their player, and trying to basically justify or show certain proof that it wasn't said. It's very disheartening, Dan. It's very disheartening. It's tiring.
Yeah. I do think
And
Vinny Jr. I'll say Vinny Jr. did the right thing. Like I think to go
you have to stop.
Yeah.
It's like, it reminds me what Samuel Eto'o did, back in his day as well, when he walked off the pitch. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what, and star players doing it. Like I fully support Vinny Jr. for the way he responded to that. Again, like he's so often a petulant child when it comes to so much of the footballing aspect of it. And you can keep two ideas in your head at the same time. And I think that's, again, when the discourse is only on social media, I said it a billion times, like you can only keep one thing in your head at one time. Okay. So that's that. Let's put that to bed.
That is that. Can I just say, I want to add to that. And I do think that Vinny as well took the right measures in calling out Cristiani, because even though other players like Lamine Yamal, when he was, or Alejandro Balde, Rafinha, I mean, the game, the Clásico de Bernabéu last season comes to mind. There was, or it was 2 seasons ago now, wasn't it? There was a clear incident last season, of racism there from the Bernabéu crowd towards the players, and it was kind of shrugged off, similar in the way that Dani Alves, for example, in the game against Villarreal, I think it was, in La Cerámica, when he was, a banana was tossed his way and he picked it up. It was kind of, shrugged off in that moment. It created a campaign. I don't know if you remember the banana campaign, and we're all Dani Alves in that moment. I wonder what has a bigger impact is what I'm trying to get to. Whether it's the the shrugging it off and kind of ignoring it, like we saw Lamine Yamal and company do, whether it was confronting it in a more humoristic way, if you will, like a Dani Alves, or Vinny running to the referee and being a lot more, I guess, affirmative about it and saying, look, I'm not going to play anymore, or Samuel Eto'o back in the day. I wonder what has a bigger impact. And I do think that Vinny's way forces all of us to take it a lot more serious and to talk about it.
I think it is. I think that's the way. I think it's the way forward. I think, again, when Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, like, we see it's like, oh, they're not having this emotional reaction, and we almost
could just get away with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. We almost honor the stoicism that comes from hearing those things. But I think for those players, like, and again, like, it's as important as in for Vinny Jr. to say, I'm not doing this. It's just as important for his teammates, like, players who look like Courtois or Fede Valverde, to stand in solidarity and walk off with it. Like, that's the essential thing here. Sure. Okay, so let's go in a different direction here. Again, quickly, Atletico Madrid found a way to bottle a lead to draw 3-3 against Club Brugge. So we'll see if they continue on. And then, again, my favorite result from the Champions League knockouts was the Bodo Glimt taking on Inter Milan 3-1 yesterday. And what I'll say for Bodo Glimt, and I mean, this is a really quick point. I tweeted this out yesterday, that what they're doing is almost unprecedented in Europe. Like, looking at other teams that have been, the underdogs in the way that they are, and how unprecedented it is. I go back to the Apoel team. Remember the Cyprian team, or the Cypriot team from 2011-12? They made the quarterfinals, and that's the only comparison to me. Because most of their teams had future stars. Monaco 16-17 had like Mbappe, and I think they had Bernardo Silva at the time. No, or he just left, whatever. Porto from 03-04 with Mourinho.
I was going to mention Porto,
Right, he had some. Ajax 18-19 had De Jong and De Ligt, whatever. And then there were other big name teams like Schalke 2011-12. They had like Raul, they had Huntelaar, and just
Dortmund a couple of seasons ago.
Right, historically. I mean, even the 95 Dortmund team, like, you look historically, like, those teams all, like, they were the underdogs or whatever, but they had, I mean, Marseille 93, like, they had the Ballon d'Or winner, right? They had Papin, right? They had Desai, like, they just had good players, right? And so, like, what Bodo Glimt is doing, I'm looking at their squad and I'm like, what player on this team is going to go anywhere for more than 15 million euros, right? Because we know they're going to be picked apart, like, hyenas are coming. But for how much? Like, I can't imagine a player on their team going for more than 15 or 20 mil in any transfer, because even their big name guy, Hogg, Like he failed at Genk. Like he crashed out 3 times. And even at Eintracht Frankfurt after his big move to Italy. So like even him, this is the 4th time. This is the 4th chance for him, and he's still in his mid-20s. But yeah, what they're doing is incredible with the talent, whatever they are. And it does, as I transition into the Barca conversation, watching them and the way that they are the sum of their parts is really, really inspiring. And then all the other big teams in world football get to look at their individualistic squads and go, gosh, it doesn't seem like, we're about to blame individual. Well, we're about to blame individual Barca players. Where it's like if Bodo Glimt had got blown out by Inter Milan, I think, or if they do in the second leg, we're just going to say they as a team, right, got overrun, or here's why they had the systemic issues. Whereas like for Barcelona, we see, we're on social media. Is it Balde's fault? Is it Koundé's fault? Is it Ferran Torres' fault? Is it De Jong's fault? Is it Casado's fault? Is it right? And you go down up and down the list and you say it's basically everybody's fault but Joan Garcia, who had an own goal, by the way, against Atletico Madrid. So no one is unscathed.
That it did have a little funny bounce right before he tried to control it, but yeah, an absolute shocker. That can also mention that Bruges, or as I like to call them, Brugge.
That's correct pronunciation. I forgot.
No, everybody says Bruges.
No, it's Bruges, and I got it right for the headlines.
No, you got it perfect. You said it in the French way. I'm gonna say it in the Flemish/Dutch way. So for me, it's Brugge. They're a great side at home. And they tied 3-3. It was the exact same scoreline, Dan. You'll remember this, that Barca had, that we had when we played them last time there. So they are no joke, especially on their home side, or on their home turf. And Atletico, who again concede 3 goals after conceding 3 against Rayo Vallecano, there's hope for us to turn this Copa, the second leg of the semifinal, around with a fabulous remontada despite being down 4-0. But a lot has to change then. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out here today, is kind of like, what can Hansi Flick do with the players that he has available now, who are, quite frankly, the most concerning thing for me is that the defensive frailty has been a topic even last year, right? I mean, it was kind of part of our aura. It was part of the brand. It was like, we're gonna go down 1 or 2 goals, and then we're gonna play entertaining, fun, attacking football, and Rafinha's gonna be a hero, and Lamine Yamal is gonna play the stars from the moon, from the sky, and we're gonna come back and pick up a win. That is not happening this season. I wonder, and I wanted to ask you as well, because I know you're a stat man, what the exact difference is from the goals that we conceded last season to this season. Because I know when it comes to the offside trap, that has reduced in half. Meaning, if last season I read a stat, Barca on average were putting 6 offside traps per game, that has dropped down to 3 this season. So that's an obvious, decrease, if you will, from the efficient offside trap that helped us last season. We're not able to bank on that as much this season. And then the other very obvious, which I think is sort of the additional new problem that Hansi Flick has to deal with, is, okay, we're conceding goals. Our offside trap is not as efficient as it was last season. However, we went from being the 3rd highest scoring Barca in history last season to this season not being able to put a ball into the back of the net, it seems, So it's like, that's the double whammy, I think, that Hansi Flick is faced with right now, that last season just wasn't a case.
Yeah, so to me, there's 3 big points, right? It's one, and the systemic issue about the offside trap that you're getting into, and that's the one that I think everyone, including Hansi Flick, is struggling to diagnose.
It's the glaring.
And I think that's what that's the main focus of our conversation. The other 2 things are actually quite simple. That Rafinha and Pedri, along with Lamine Yamal, we think about Xavi and who his most important players were, and under Hansi Flick, his guys have been Lamine Yamal, obviously breaking out from being the superstar he is, Rafinha, both offensively and defensively, and all the intangibles about his personality. And then, of course, Pedri, right? Like, those have been, and you could argue now Kubarsi as well, that I throw him as the 4th, right? Like, so the whole structure that Hansi Flick sets up and the success that they have hinges on those 4 players. And yes, you have to survive without Pedri and Rafinha, but I think we're getting to the point in the season where Pedri, after 2 years of being irrationally healthy in the course of his career, he has now missed almost 1,000 minutes more than Eric Garcia, who leads Hansi Flick's team in minutes. And Rafinha is even 300 minutes less than that. Rafinha is just over 1,400 minutes. And at this same time last year, he was around 28. So double the amount of minutes. So it's like, yes, you can miss Pedri and Rafinha. Yes, you need to rotate them. But they've missed, at this point now, Rafinha, half the minutes of a season. And that will affect you if you're missing two of your three most important players for that time. That's not an excuse, but that's saying like that is between last year and this year, a major difference by and large in your, from 90 minutes to 90 minutes from month to month. And then part two of that, I'd say now we're at three. So that's two. Three is just luck. Last season, luck was in Barcelona's favor. And this season, they've actually been unlucky. Like they are tied with Valencia for penalty misses in La Liga. And yes, penalties are, whether you call them luck or not, but they are like an X factor. That's why desperate teams get to go to PKs, because anything can happen. And then the shots on post or crossbar in all competitions this season, this stat is, I have a million stats for you, Diego. Yes, I know, I'm a sellout. But the shots on post or crossbar in all competitions this season, this is insane to me. Barcelona has hit the post or the crossbar 32 times this season. Can you guess how many times their opponents have hit in the crossbar or post?
Oh my God.
Go lower. Whatever number is in your gut, probably go lower.
16, 15, 14, above the teams.
7.
Oh my God.
32 times Barcelona's hit the post or the crossbar, and their opponents have hit it just 7. So that is so shocking to me. Correct. Because that, I think, sums up the fact that you look at the recent finishing rate for Ferran Torres, for Olmo, and the number of players that have missed big chances by Barcelona this season. Here's the other stat. I know your audience, my audience knows, like, you've got to hit the snooze when Dan starts to say stats, but for your audience, wake up, this is the last one. Most big chances missed by Barcelona players this season in all competitions. Ferran Torres with 23, Lewandowski with 18, Rashford with 14, Fermin with 9, Lamine Yamal with 8, Daniel Olmo with 8, and Rafinha with 4. Last season, they had not had that same total number of big chances, but they were finishing at a much higher rate. And so even though the big chances were created larger, the big chances missed this season is almost 70% more than they were last season, And so that, again, we're trying to diagnose why that is. Well, it's because Lewandowski is another year older, and I think he's actually having the same kind of output this season, because he's at 13 goals, right? And you argue about other forwards coming in, like Ete Young. I was having a conversation with somebody on social media about him, and he's got 6 goals for Levante. And you look at if he was going to have the number of minutes, in almost the same number of minutes that Lewandowski has. Like, so Ete Young's at 6 goals, and he's like supposed to be the guy for Levante, playing on the same number of minutes as Lewandowski, and Lewandowski has 13 goals. So even though Lewandowski is older, he still has a similar output that's expected. And for Ferran Torres, we're seeing that the best version of him was a super sub, and now you're starting him regularly, and he's getting exposed with his finishing rate, which we know is going to happen, right? And so starting with the forwards, and I think for Hansi Flick, he said the same thing. It starts with our press. It starts with our forwards. And with Lewandowski having lost another step, and with Ferran Torres, yes, he's a better presser, but he's so much less of a box presence that when teams play in that low block against Barcelona, that's why they're missing big chances. Like, they're getting chances, but they're not real quality chances, because big chances don't necessarily mean like the highest quality chances either.
That's fascinating. These stats are absolutely mind-blowing, to be honest, and quite concerning as well, because again, what we're trying to figure out here is what is the immediate fix that will allow us to be title contenders or repeat champions in the case of the Copa del Rey and La Liga. And that's where I have my big doubts, Dan. I'm not entirely sure. Also, seeing how the wind is blowing in other directions, or for other teams, I should say, the fact that they seem to have swimming pools in the 18-yard box and, getting penalties for diving into those pools at every given occasion. You see how lopsided, the favoritism is when it comes to referees blowing penalties in favor for the Whites, as I call them of late, Los Blancos, right? It's like it's theirs for the taking now. We're down 2 points. We're 2 points adrift. We still have the Clásico to play for, so fate is still in our hands. And I was kind of putting the hope that this Barca will start to click again, pinning those hopes on the return of a Pedri, because I think also for everything that he gives gives us offensively, we also, it's so glaring now, it's so obvious what he provides defensively as well when it comes to recoveries, recouping the ball, bringing the ball up. I mean, Pedri is a workhorse. He's the energizer bunny that right now this midfield is missing. For all the praises that I was singing Frenkie de Jong's direction a few weeks ago, that consistency in the Dutch midfielder has also dropped off, right? He's not as reliant anymore, and he's not the Pedri replacement that I was hoping that he would be when he did step up. It's like then the next game he disappears. And Fermin Lopez, who I think, if you're a Barca fan and Fermin Lopez is not one of your favorite players, I question your culésism. But I cannot rely on a Fermin Lopez to lead us to championships come the end of the season. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I was pinning the hopes on Barca leapfrogging Real Madrid in La Liga and also, of course, building a remontada or mounting a remontada against Atlético de Madrid in a Copa del Rey on the return of a Pedri. But based on everything that you have said, it's kind of like the pessimism and realism has sunk in again, that I think this could be a trophyless season because...
Well, the Spanish Super Cup is already...
It's a chupito. Then it's a little drink. It's a little merry cheers that then goes down the hatch, but it's not something that we're going to be parading on the streets about. And even the Copa del Rey, you could argue, is the same way. So I don't know. It makes me very sad to come to realize that we're quite probably going to lose the league against this. Vulgar Real Madrid side.
I don't know. I think, okay, yeah, two thoughts on that is, one, I have been a staunch supporter that do not overrate. I think the Copa del Rey, culés, we have fallen for the propaganda that because Barcelona have won that trophy more than Real Madrid, we have fallen for the Spanish propaganda that is a diluted competition. Like the magic of the cup.
The Copa del Rey.
Yes. I think...
Yeah, okay, I was talking about the Super Copa.
No. Super, that's a different thing. Right. Yeah. Then they send it to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. No. I got you. But it's the same with like the Catalan trophy that Barca Athletic just beat Andorra to get to the final of. But I celebrate all trophies. But anyway, the Copa del Rey, I think that the prestige of that cup, I don't want to let the fact that Real Madrid in the last decade have not cared about that as much to say that it doesn't matter. Like,
no, I get that, but are we good enough to build a remontada to put 5 past Cholo Simeone without conceding?
Okay, well that's the question that we're trying to answer. To that point, I think we kind of set the table with the Champions League with this before. I hear you, but I think that my optimism comes from not Barcelona's success, but the negativity towards everybody else. Like that's like even the Champions League, right, being still a variable. It's like, is Barcelona good enough to win the Champions League? No. But if you're a fan of other teams and you watch Arsenal you watch Arsenal in stoppage time against Wolves yesterday, right? All Arsenal fans are like, we're about to bottle the league. There's no way we're going to win the Champions League. When even a month ago, I'm like, Arsenal and Bayern Munich are so far ahead of everyone else in the Champions League. And then you ask Bayern Munich fans, are like, well, what's happening to us in the Bundesliga? Like we basically wrapped it up. They did. Bayern Munich have already won the Bundesliga, and now looks like they're taking their foot off the gas. Or if you're a fan of any team in Italy that isn't Como, you're like, what's happening with us? Why are we failing? And then you watch Real Madrid week in and week out, and you go, yeah, the refs might be on their side, but like if you told me that they were able to drop points in 5 of 7 matches, that's not crazy because they're not great. Like they're not great, and now they're incorporating Mbappe, and they look worse again. That's what Real Madrid is, right? Like their best player does not make them a better team. And that fundamentally, I think, is even a bigger problem than any problem that Barcelona has, which, again, their problem is just that they concede a ton of times and they're not scoring enough now this season to match the number of goals they give up. So what I would say is every major team has a fundamental issue, and we are myopically looking at this through the lens of like, Barcelona's not good enough to win trophies. Because, yeah, you're right. But also this season, it feels like nobody is. There is no unconquering side. So I still think Barcelona is, with Pedri and Rafinha, if they're able to play 85% of the minutes for the rest of the season, I do think Barcelona are just a better team consistently than Real Madrid. Now, the Champions League, that's a different story. And as far as the remontada against Atletico Madrid, I think that's a bit of a crapshoot. You really don't know. Like Pedri and Rafinha can't. It's one game, right? It's like how much effort, how much fight, and all those intangibles. Like how much pride are they going to have, and can Joan Garcia stand on his head? Then the question I have for you is when we talk about fixing it and like the conversation that Hansi Flick has, is this a personnel issue where it doesn't matter who plays along that back line? Because Hansi Flick has tried out everybody. He has played, and I have this here, he has, in 38 official matches this season, he's used 16 different defensive formations. And, right, exactly. So, yes, it seems like on paper, Balde, Eric Garcia, Kubarsi, Koundé is the starting four, but yet Gerard Martin, technically on minutes, is the starting center back pairing with Kubarsi because Eric Garcia has played so many minutes at other spots. So he has tried every bit of personnel. And then we talked about in the midfield, my biggest issue the last two games is that Dani Olmo, Fermin Lopez, and Frankie de Jong, defensively, they're a shiv. So you can talk about the offside trap all you want, but if, in basketball, or not basketball, but I was going to say the line of conversation in basketball, if you're going to trap, where you begin that trap, the line of conversation for Barcelona is in their own box, right? And that can't happen. If you're going to play an offside trap, your midfield has to give some kind of pushback somewhere. And Casado was completely overrun and ran through. And then it wasn't necessarily just him, but I just mean he was out of place in what was being asked. And you can watch my 5 headlines for the more tactical breakdown of that. But then, yes, you're asking Barcelona in the midfield to defend in a way that they do not organically do. So is that a personnel issue, or is there something that Hansi Flick can do? Like, can he push de Jong farther back to be part of the offside trap? Is that going to help? But no, because historically he does not track runners. Like de Jong just doesn't track runners. That's the problem. So is it a personnel issue, or is it a Hansi Flick can fix this with some system change? I'm concerned to say that I think it might be they do not have the proper personnel to be able to fix these problems.
I would double down on that. I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think that we have the players to execute Hansi Flick's game plan successfully. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that Frankie de Jong has these limitations when it comes to his game, because defensively he's like Dutch cheese. It's there's too many holes in it. Like there's hope. Like there's a reoccurring question that I like to bring up on D-Spot, and it's who can fill the Bussy hole. Okay. Which player is going to be able to fill that defensive midfield position as well? And my hope is that Bernal can grow into that. I think there's a lot of, and you probably talked about it as well in the Barcelona pod. I think there are a lot of similarities between Bernal and Sergio Busquets. My question is if defensively he can be as imposing and as successful and as disciplined as a Busquets was, because I think offensively he ticks all the boxes right now. But if we could get back to the 1-to-1 rule come the summer transfer window, I would love to be able to be in Deco's office and hear the names that he is, and him and of course Hansi Flick are scouting and are the ¿cómo se dice? That they're pondering, let's say weighing to potentially purchase in the next transfer window, because I don't think we have those pieces to the puzzle yet. Like we're missing players right now.
I mean, I've been saying all season that the idea of Marc Bernal and Ronald Araujo, they are a solution to all of Barcelona's problems. They are. Those two players, the idea, right? The maximum, the peak, the elite idea of those two players are exactly the characteristics and conditions that Barcelona needs. But to that point, Bernal is an 18-year-old who is coming off an ACL, right? And, with Gabi returning soon, I've also continued to say, do not expect anything from Gabi this season. He's basically missed 2 full years. So he's not, again, personality-wise, breaking things up. He's exactly the profile that Barcelona also need, because he is Casado on an infinite amount of steroids, right? He is what Hansi Flick wanted Casado to be doing, and he's exactly that thing.
And Busquets was a freak of nature as well. Remember that Busquets came from the B team and benched Yaya Toure at the time. I mean, if we could now get Yaya Toure, that would be a perfect sort of, patch.
I mean, I take Seydou Keita yesterday.
Right, Keita, exactly.
I would take him yesterday. And I draw my line at
Edgar Davids.
Yeah, I draw my line at Alex Song. That's where the defensive midfielder subs ends. I mean, he can do any different.
But you're right as well with Araujo, though. We're all hoping, of course, that he's now overcome the mental issues that kept him sidelined for a few weeks, and that mental battle is also something, of course, that that prevents players from playing at their maximum ability. Araujo was such a fantastic prospect. I mean, he was the Vinny stopper at some point, and his drop off, and as unfortunate as it's been, he's been posterized, to use basketball terminology. An unfortunate amount of times now, even if it was not wholly, like not entirely deserved. Like, for example, I'm thinking of the red card against QSG, against PSG in the quarterfinal. Was it the quarterfinal? Yeah. I think all of those moments, situations, and experiences have obviously affected him, plus the ruthlessness of online media and Barca fans just rinsing the man. Like, he comes out now, and in the Camp Nou, I don't know how many times you've had the privilege to be there, but when you go there and you feel like you can sense when the crowd is uncomfortable with the player being on the ball. You know, it was the same with Chigrinsky or what was his name? Andre Gomez, the Portuguese guy.
Andre Gomez,
he was. I mean, these are players that were bullied by their own fan base. Not only online, but in the stadium. Like, it was like you could sense the nerves, and a player can perceive that definitely. So I'm just kind of hoping that he's able to put all that aside and behind him, and kind of come back to be that very prolific central defender that he once was in his, earlier in his career.
Well, I mean, what I really do, I don't know, what I wish is that one of Koundé or Araujo was left-footed, because the problem with, especially in Hansi Flick's system, the problem is starting them both at, if Araujo would start at right center back, because again, you have to have him on his proper foot on his right side, and then Koundé obviously starting at right back. The problem is that already we saw against Atletico Madrid, Koundé is the pressing trigger. So Araujo Araujo is not going to start the rest of the season, because Koundé is already the pressing trigger for other teams. And if those two are together, they just don't solve the problems of being able to play through those pressing. Again, that's pressing. That's Elche's press. That's Rayo Vallecano's press. That's not Bayern Munich's press. That's not
exactly.
Right? So I think the issue with Araujo is that I know people focus on his mental aspect of the defensive mistakes he's made, but in truth, I think he is such a good defender, and we know what he was capable of, that he would have gotten the minutes required to break through and work through that if he had the ball playing ability to be able to play next to Koundé, and that's just not the case, right?
Interesting.
So that means Araujo has been forced into a sub role. But as I said, on paper, if Araujo had improved at that ball playing ability, and he wasn't just guaranteed to be the pressing trigger every single time, then he would, he'd be that guy that Barcelona need him to be. And I think with Araujo, to me, his time at Barcelona, it's so interesting, because, like, to me, it doesn't end because of all the issues he's had between with his defensive stuff and the feelings and the vibes. And I hear you about the intangibles, but again, I go back to, like, the simple part of, like, what does he provide for a team that generally has between 65 and 75% of possession every single match, right? Because we're talking about the 25% of the time when Barcelona are facing down a counter and the team is getting deep. But there are so many times this season, even when, we talk about the one big major mistake, but he also, when he does play, he just snuffs out these attacks like it's his job, because he physically, nobody's close to him as a Barcelona defender, right? And so Barcelona looking to bring in this summer a left center back who can do 80% of the physical job that Araujo can do, but is obviously going to be much, much better with the ball at his feet, and that'll be a thing that's solved. Where on the other side of the field, when we talk about solving problems, against Atletico Madrid, if Barcelona had just hit a penalty and scored two of those chances, right? Two of them. And if it was Rafinha missing them, sorry, that was Girona. I'm getting confused in the number of chances that are being missed. But, if
it's the age, Dan.
Yeah,
welcome,
sorry. If Fernan Torres puts some of those home, if Fermin puts some of those home, if Olmo puts his chance home, then we're talking about an entirely different tie, right? And I think when it comes to the other side in the transfer window, I did have a Twitter poll about this yesterday. I gave like I said Bastoni and Vasovic or Harry Kane and Nobel Mendy, who plays for Rayo. Basically, it was like, would you go with an unproven center back prospect and a, we'll say an A plus or an A forward, or would you rather the A plus defender and go with like the second rate forward option? And I think where I sit at this moment, now I am allowed to change my opinion, but where I sit at this moment is that I would go with the high quality defender, because I think, now Vasilevich gets injured a lot, so I'm not like particularly talking about him, but there is no good option. Like Lewandowski, depending on what La Liga gives him as the wages for next season, and it's 50%, right? You can't go less than 50% of what your wages were the year before. I think that's the league rule.
Is that what it is? I'm not entirely sure.
Well,
is that why Joao Felix was registered? Right. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's 50% as like what your wages will be set for La Liga minimum, because that's why like a player can't basically sign on with a sweetheart
Messi
deal.
Couldn't play for free.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's 50% of what your wages were the last time. And for Lewandowski, I mean, at minimum, it's going to be 10 mil. And so you're asking, like, can you get 13 to 20 goals or 20, whatever it is, for around 10 mil in wages? Because we're not talking about the transfer costs, we're talking about the wages. And I think that even next season, with the star that Lamine Yamal is, Barcelona is going to create enough chances where, I'm not saying you and I could bang in a few goals, but like Barcelona is probably going to get enough goals next season. They need to fix the problem on the other side, that this season, Juan Garcia has faced 66 shots in the Liga with a 21.36 expected goals on target against him. That said, he's conceded just 14 goals, meaning he's prevented 7.5 expected goals against him. He has a 78.8% save percentage, the highest in the league. And so when it comes to the problems that Barcelona have, they concede too much. So as much as I'm like, yeah, the midfield feels set between Bernal and maybe Gavi will be back, but the midfield is not set because they are not, even with Pedri, they have not been the line that they have not been the what do you call it? I guess the line before the line that they need to be. So, I mean, we can accuse Koundé of having a drop in form because he has. Balde, Kubarsi, whoever you want to blame on that back line, right, for being the problem. No, it is we'll say the bottom six or whatever. And it begins at the press, though, too. Again, Lewandowski's not pressing at the same rate. Rafinha's been missing. And Lamine Yamal had that groin injury for the first half of the season. So I know it sounds like I'm making a ton of excuses, but I think all of it combined, it's just a million reasons.
All things can be true. Exactly. I think that's really it, right? It's sort of the perfect storm. It does sound funny, though, going back to what you mentioned earlier. It's like $1 million per goal for Lewandowski potentially next season, basically, is what you're saying.
Yep.
I don't know. I was going to, you mentioned you kind of skimmed over Koundé and Balde. I was going to ask you as well what you make of our wingback situation. The fact that, Gerard Martin is sort of the biggest competitor, although he does play a center back sometimes, but that's the biggest competition that Balde has in his position. And for Koundé, it's sort of, he has that fixed starting spot. How do you feel about that? And do you not see that as one of our, if the entire back line and the high line and the press and everything is a problem, and you touched upon all the good points, right? The fact that it should start with the forwards and that teams just go through the midfield, skip through the midfield like a hot knife through butter. How important, I guess is my question, are the wingbacks for Barca, both defensively and offensively, and what are we missing from them?
Well, I think Eric Garcia, when he started in, the first half of the season, he was better right back this season than Koundé.
But he's been a better central defender. He's been a better defensive midfield. Eric Garcia has been the joker.
He's had the most minutes, but he's had to be. My point is, if Barcelona were to sign a center back, like a guy who's going to be the starter, right? Even a guy like Marcos Sensi, who's been for a free agent, linked with Barca, plays at Bournemouth, left center back, whatever, that guy's going to step right in the starting lineup. And Eric Garcia has been better than Koundé. And if Koundé and Eric Garcia, you have a two-headed monster, because I think the problem with Koundé over the last 3 years is the guy's fatigued. He's played too many minutes. Like, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, like the drop of form for me with him is that he is just thrown out there game in and game out. It's not even about competition. It's like the guy is constantly just put in that position every time. And how mentally taxing, as I said, with Araujo not starting, to be the pressing trigger every single time. Just exhausting, right? And I think he looks fatigued to me. And so that competition for him just means he needs to be rotated with somebody else. And I think by signing a big center back in the offseason, you move him over to right back, which is that being Eric Garcia for competition. So you don't have to get a big fullback.
So you haven't given up yet
on Koundé?
Yeah.
No, because I think he needs to like give up playing for like 2 weeks and put his feet up on a table and ice himself. You know what I mean? Like he just needs a nice ice bath, but he doesn't get that because Eric Garcia to that point has to start at center back or defensive midfield. Like he just has to be other spots because he's more influential there. But I think the best version of Barcelona does have Eric Garcia as a right back, where I think he really did help. Again, because you're playing against a low block whose only option is to press you high, and then they're going to sit back and rest on their laurels. And Koundé does not have the skill set to do well against those teams, right? It's Eric Garcia who's going to do better against those teams, especially if you can limit the counterattacks that those teams have on the wings, and you try to funnel everything to the middle. But again, he's needed in the middle right now, and that's not really who he is either physically. He's not solving problems in the middle there either. It's Eric Garcia. He's like limiting risk, right? And that's the difference. Is all these players, like even Balde, right? He's limiting risk, but he's not raising your ceiling at the moment. And for Balde, I push back harder and defend Balde harder because left back is a position that around world football, it's just, it's a really hard position right now. And what he's asked to do and the amount of space he is asked and required to handle on that left side, it's like, what more, other than having a better finishing final ball, which Gerard Martin actually has, other than that final ball, which I get you, what does he do? What more could you ask of him to do offensively and defensively? Like I would say Atletico Madrid in my notes was I'd say that was the worst defensive game he had this season. But in his defense, Simeone, that being like the son, Simeone and Molina consistently had him in a 2v1 because Atletico Madrid.
All the time.
Yeah, it was a consistent 2v1 because of the runners for Atletico Madrid and the midfield for Barcelona were getting overrun and they weren't tracking the runners. So it was a 2v1. So I mean, any player that's required to defend two players and you're just one person, what do you think is going to happen? And so that's my defense of Balde, that like every time you say he's been bad defensively, it's like, no, he's been put in a situation that he is not going to succeed in. And the only criticism of him is like saying that he is not improved offensively, but also every offensive left. Like, why do you think Cancelo's not playing? Cancelo is leagues better than Balde offensively, but defensively, it's just not, it's apples and oranges. And that's why any other big offensive fullback that you're going to bring in, even Nuno Mendes against Monaco, the guy, he had a cross and he sent it to the moon. And like somebody tweeted this out and I was watching and I completely agreed. Like if Balde had that cross, Barcelona fans would have lost their minds. But because it's Nuno Mendes is allowed to have one or two crosses every now and again that are just a complete joke and nobody jumps on him because we know he's the best fullback in world football. But I mean, Diego, I ask everybody, every time you say, I want to replace Balde, sign blah, 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 I say, okay, give me 5 better offensive, dribbling wise, and defensive fullbacks than Alejandro Balde. Name 5 more well-rounded fullbacks in world football. Good freaking luck.
I mean, I always revert back to Jordi Alba. I just want a Jordi Alba. That's what I want. And I'm wondering if Alejandro Balde, who I back and of course I support, and he's a Masia player, he fits in so well in this group. He's given us a lot already. What concerns me is this stark drop-off that we've seen from him defensively. Yeah. These moments, these lapses in concentration, not being disciplined in the high line, playing a player on-side. And also, offensively, I kind of do miss his influence. I do miss that impact. I miss a Jordi Alba. I miss a Sergi Barjuan, Chapi Ferrer. Like I'm going way back. It's true that maybe in current football, the most obvious answer is a Nuno Mendes, who's obviously impossible for us to get. And the question then becomes, well, if it's not Balde, who is it? But I'm not ready to give up on him. I feel like if I take the general sense of what I grasp on social media from Barca Twitter, it's like, get Koundé and Balde out. I'm not ready to give up on either, but I do want them to have some stiffer competition for them to step it up,
isn't that the balance?
And also to rest, to go to your point before, to obviously get some more minutes and rest more important minutes.
Well, I think that's the balance. I think Casado, let's end with Casado, because I think that's kind of the conversation we're having about so many of this young team that Hansi Flick has. Like,
Yeah.
I am willing to criticize Kubarsi because he's a starting center back for FC Barcelona. But as I was
Yeah.
talking about the watch along on Big Up, please join me for those. By the way, I'll have the one on Levante Sunday morning. But like the thing about Kubarsi is like in my head I rank them like top 75, top 100 Barcelona players. I've been working on that list now for a decade, and it's changed as like players have come in and out, and it's just like, okay, well, Lewandowski, Pedri, Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, they're like, those four are definitely on that list now already. It's just, where are they, whatever. And Kubarsi is interesting because like by the time he is 21 years old, he is going to be one of, historically, Barcelona's like, especially if they win trophies, he's going to be like one of their top like 10 center backs, and he'll be 22 years old. And so with Kubarsi, it's like, I hear you on your criticism, and I will criticize him when he has a bad match or makes a mistake. But also, he is 18, 19 years old, so leave him alone and talk to me again about his legacy when he's 23. Balde and Casado are now 22, and they're now at that point, right? 22 to 24 is that inflection point for these careers where you're really deciding where is there the room to grow? Again, like Gerard Martin. I watched him when he was 21, 22 with Barca Athletic, and I was like, that dude's not good enough. And then he was 22 last season, the first team, and I was like, that dude's probably not good enough. This season, he turned 23, and Gerard Martinez looked like he's cheap, right? He's like $4 million on wages a year. So he's cheap. He's a good depth piece, whatever. You can play him two positions, and he's fine on the ball, and he's a good final ball. And now this year, I'm like, yeah, if he's your 22nd player, great. Gerard Martin, he's fine, right? And that's because he turned 23 years old and got better. And so it's like, are we being too harsh at times on Balde, on Casado? And so I think with Casado, and again, this is where I want to end, like this contract stuff with him is like, it's so hard because I'm like, how do you say to a 22-year-old, one who comes from the academy, one who's going to be, even on a renewal, is going to be on very cheap wages, who wants to be part of your 25, who speaks Catalan, right? Is like, loves the club. Like, how do you...
Who goes down to Canaletas to celebrate the trophy with the Ultras and the Boixos Noise.
Right. Can you put two hands in his back and push him out of the club when you have a player like that choosing to be here? And I'm like so divided because I watched the U19s last week. I'm looking at Pedro Villar and I'm looking at Pedro Rodriguez, who are 17 and 18 respectively. And I go, I mean, I think those kids actually in like a year or two can give you exactly what Casado can give you. And then they're going to be cheaper than what Casado is going to be in 2 years, right? So it's like, that's the talent factory that allows you to be able to say, as a club, you've got to say goodbye to Casado for 30 mil, because if a club is willing to come in for a 22-year-old like Casado for 30 mil and offer him a starting spot at Napoli or whatever, it's like you say, yeah, you can do this. Like, we back you, like, and both sides can say, hey, your mark on your club, your childhood club, will be with us forever, right? And you say, like, and it's like you have to say, like, we love that you were here and we hope the best for you later. And so I'm so divided on Casado because I'm like, again, at 22, what if at 25 he is everything that we hope him to be? But the difference between him and Bernal is like, Bernal, you can see what he could be when healthy and in the future. And with Casado, it's like, I think he might be kissing the ceiling already. And so it might be time to part. And I think with Balde, it's like a similar conversation where it's like, yeah, I mean, if Balde hasn't hit his ceiling, dude's going to be the best left back in world football. But if he is hitting his ceiling, it's like you take that, but also you continue to have your eyes elsewhere and go, I mean, maybe there is competition for him who can, and maybe there is somebody else out there.
It's difficult. It's a very good point you bring up, because late bloomers is also a very real thing. I mean, Xavi, for example, or Puyol, especially in Xavi's case, I mean, he had very stiff competition in that midfield that kind of stunt his immediate progress and also integration in the first team. After getting his debut under Louis van Gaal, then under Rijkaard, he had Deco, Ronaldinho, obviously, in the midfield.
Remember, he's 22 years old. He's going to be sent to Rangers on loan because he's being booed by his home crowd. Home fans at the Camp Nou are booing Xavi at 22 years old. He's going to Rangers. So I just for context, like, remember, this is where we were, and Xavi became who he is at 28. So, or 26.
Even Milan, AC Milan was knocking on the door. He had an offer from them. And it was one summer where he was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go.
And I
think that's when Pep came. Yeah, right. It's difficult. It is very difficult. It's interesting to see how these players will continue to develop and hopefully, come into their own and really step up to the plate, because we need it, quite frankly. I mentioned the 1-to-1 rule that hopefully we will be able to reach this summer. It's not something I'm banking on, because that whole, these financial gymnastics that we seemingly have to continue to do in each and every single transfer window will remain a thing or not. I don't know. Let's cross that bridge when we get there. But again, how great would it be, though, just to be able to go back to our good old glory days and go into a transfer window, a transfer market with, a nice amount of money and say, we're going to be able, we're going to now acquire an experienced player, because I do think that the, ¿cómo se llama? Hostia, que se fue, the one that went to the Saudi league.
Inigo Martinez, yeah.
Inigo Martinez, joder. Man, my age is showing, huh, Dan? I'm forgetting names left and right.
You have more gray hair than me, for those listening. Diego does. I am gray on the sides, but Diego's got more gray than me. It's true.
The departure of Inigo Martinez, definitely. And then, the burden, the pressure then of Cubarsí having to step up to that plate, as you mentioned, a teenager, that was a very heavy burden to carry, and an unrealistic one as well. Mm-hmm. And definitely, somebody, even though Inigo Martinez was never a world-class defender, he was perfect for that leadership role and trying to keep that organization, that discipline in the defensive line that then made it so successful for us. And that, I think, comes with experience as well, right? Understanding what the coach wants from you and your teammates and applying that, being that extension of the coach on the field. That's something that we're missing, that hopefully Araujo can get back to his best ways. And Cubarsí, of course, we're still very patient with him, because I agree with you. I think he will be one of the best Barca defenders in history, but there's clearly been a drop-off in what we saw from him last season to this season. That's undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, Emily Dickinson said hope is a thing with feathers, and I think my feathers rest with Bernal and Gabi, but again, not this season. So when you're talking about this season, Diego, I think you and I failed to solve any problems, but also Hansi Flick is failing to solve those problems right now too. So other than Joan Garcia standing on his head and Pedri and Rafinha coming back, I don't really know, again, structurally, with everything I said. I mean, again, the other thing is and I'll end it with this, luck. You and I are now in the content space. You and I had an awesome conversation about.
We did. That should have been a podcast.
I feel like it should have been a Patreon podcast behind the scenes. If you want that, hey, for both D-Spot listeners and Barcelona podcast listeners, let us know if you want Diego and I do some behind the scenes thing as professionals in this space. We will depress you to no end. We have bank statements to make you all sad. But that said, I think when it comes to this season, it could be as simple as Barcelona turning it around. Might be Pedri and Rafinha returning and getting to some stages of where they were at last season on the press, from the forward line all the way back. You have Joan Garcia in net, and then you, instead of hitting the post and the crossbar, you start putting those in, and then Ferran Torres, you start putting some of those home. Right? Because again, his chance rate right now is he is so good at getting to those spots, and he is just missing them this season. And so if he can score again, for Fermin and Olmo, the tough thing is their numbers are actually good. Fermin and Olmo are actually having good seasons, and you can't really ask too.
Olmo is as well. That's a little surprising.
It is. I know Fermin is. So those two are actually having their rate is pretty good compared to the rest of their careers. So you can't really ask too much more of them, other than you need someone else to be starting, and you got to stop Olmo from being in the double pivot. That's just, it's not who he is. Those two are the number 10. Yeah. And yes, Hansi Flick has found some not even success, because it hasn't been success. He has found a way to function with those two in the midfield together, but that's not the best version of Barcelona in any way. So it's having just one of them on the field at one time gets the best out of the individual player that's on the field at that time. And then, Rafinha coming back. So get lucky. Get your best players back on the field. That's really the formula to Barcelona, finding their way for the rest of the season.
And maybe, Dan, as well, to add to that, it could be. I bring up basketball references because that's kind of my sport. I love basketball. Me too. It's psychological as well. I mean, you talk about luck, but sort of you can have hot streaks and cold streaks, but once that ball starts going in, and you just see the ball hitting the net, you hear that swoosh. Mm-hmm. Could be the same for these players. Once they see the ball hit the back of the net, the post, this ridiculous number that you mentioned before, we can transform those into goals. Maybe it's again that little luck will then be on our side, and we can still turn this season around.
They are conceding, I think, 63% of their goals in the first half this season. So
right,
I'll preview it later, but any remontada against Atletico Madrid, you have to score first and you have to score
Yeah.
early, because we saw their confidence get completely shattered. And that's the problem.
Dan, I want to know from you, how's this season going to end? Give me a prognostica. Give me your...
I do still think that Barcelona, again, this is me watching Real Madrid and not giving a compliment to Barcelona, but instead saying this Real Madrid side is bad. And I do not believe in Arbeloa at all. I do not think he's a good manager. I think that they themselves are 1 or 2 injuries away from just not having the weapons or the tools or the people in the right spots. So I think Barcelona, I still back them to limp their way into the Liga title this season. And I think Spain in Champions League this year is going to be a conversation and a referendum on how the Spanish clubs are competing in Europe. Let's put it that way. That's what I think about the Champions League for all of them this season. Even if Real Madrid gets through Benfica, like I think it's going to be a referendum on Spanish teams are not good enough I mean, look at what Villarreal did in the Champions League league phase.
Unbelievable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think
Very
that's
sad.
the referendum. And then the Copa del Rey, Atletico Madrid. Last point I'll give you, Diego, is that I try to say this too. There are 20 teams in the Liga, and there are much more in the Copa del Rey, right? There's Guadalajara, whatever, like the bottom, whatever teams in lower leagues. And so with all the teams who play in the Cup in Spain, trophies are not guaranteed. So what I say about the Copa del Rey is enjoy trophies, because do you know how exciting it would be? Like what kind of hubris must we have to, like, if every time Athletic Club win the Copa del Rey, right? Or Valencia or Real Sociedad, like how exciting that would be for them and how wonderful that is for their supporters. So, like imagine if you're Celta de Vigo and you win the Copa del Rey, or I go back to when Mallorca won the Copa del Rey. What is it? Almost 30 years ago now. So those clubs, the Copa del Rey that's peak. And so again, I don't want to have the hubris of being a culé and say, Copa del Rey, we won it 32 times away. What's a 33rd?
Yeah.
Who cares? Like,
I get that.
No,
for sure.
A trophy's a trophy, and I try to honor each and every one. But yes, I know the Champions League that's where Barcelona should be. It's a club that makes over $1 billion in revenue. Yeah, like of course, there's a big difference between Celta's 135 million euro revenue, whatever it is, and Barcelona's 1.2 billion, where they'll be at probably next season. Not yet this season or since pandemic, but. So anyway, Diego, I want to implore people to find you on YouTube. It's going to be in the section, the show notes, description, whatever. But also, they're probably watching on your channel because we have a collaboration on YouTube, and they've started a new feature. So,
and I want to do this more often, man. I want to do it, even if it's not an hour long, if we can do little snippets here of a 10, 15-minute take, that would be, do that as a regular coming on each other's channels that would have these kind of cross collaborations. I think that would be very valuable for our viewers. So I really enjoyed this conversation, man. It's been too long. It has been too long.
Yeah. People were telling me that they're tired of me just talking to myself, but that's what I learned of the pandemic. Just talk to yourself in a room by myself.
Exactly.
So, but as those who those who watch, they know that usually in my lap is Skippy, so I'll leave you. Oh, he was napping. So all right, with my
daughter here and my dog here, and they are so hungry.
Yeah. So Diego and I are going to nap, and we're going to eat, and everybody, we will see you Sunday morning for Levante. And with that, as I always say, Forza Barça.
Venga, Forza.